Welcome, fellow Stardust. Are you ready for a scare? I see you've come back for more. If you're new here, buckle up, and thank you for joining me today. My name is DeRay, aka Rainbow Fright, lover of all things dark, creepy, and weird. Today's film review will be on comedy horror Night of the Creeps.
You really didn't do that.
Cryogenics. Cryogenics. Chris, do you realize what this is? You heard of freeze-dried coffee, right? Well, this is like a freeze-dried human, a corpsicle.
Today's movie review is a subscriber request from Insane One. They have been supporting my channel for a while now, and I'm excited to finally get to review their film submission. Thank you, Insane One, for your request and for helping me push through this crazy endeavor. If you'd like to submit a film for my monthly subscriber request drawings, all you have to do is subscribe and put your film in the comment section. You can find my schedule for my subscriber requests in my About section. At the start of the film, we witness a few aliens battle it out as two of them fail to keep the third alien from releasing a tube into outer space. On Earth, it's 1959 when the tube enters the Earth's atmosphere. A college kid who was with his date decides to go check it out and ends up with a creep slug in his mouth. At the same time, his date Pam is hacked to death by a mental hospital escapee. We then fast forward to 1986 at a college campus where we see best friends Chris and JC talking about Chris's heartbreak over losing yet another girlfriend. Being the hopeless romantic, or sap, that he is, he immediately forgets about his ex-girlfriend when he lays eyes on Cindy, a girl he's never met. After his best friend and wingman chats it up with Cindy, Chris gets it in his head that he must now pledge the betas in order to win her over. The betas, led by super rad Bradster, have no intention of letting them become a part of the fraternity, but give them a task anyway in an attempt to humiliate them. They're told to steal a cadaver from the University Medical Center and place it in front of a rival frat house. They instead find the body of the college student from 1959, frozen and preserved. When the body begins to thaw, it grabs JC's hand. Freaked out, they run away. When the young scientist finds the body on the floor, we see the same creep from the beginning jump into his mouth from the mouth of the college student. From here, all hell breaks loose. We're introduced to Ray Cameron, a lonely and jaded detective. He was once the boyfriend of Pam and has held on to his feelings for her since he saw her hacked to bits and pieces in 1959. We watch on as the horror of the creeps who turn people into zombies is slowly being discovered by Detective Cameron and Chris. By the end, they battle the betas after they become zombies and Detective Cameron attempts to kill them all. Night of the Creeps was so much fun. This was actually my first time watching it, and I'm kind of glad I didn't watch it as a kid because I don't think I would have appreciated it for what it was. For a long time, I didn't really like comedy horror, or at least this type of campy comedy horror. And I love films like Gremlins, Child's Play, and Tremors, but I never really liked Ghostbusters too much. I haven't seen that one in over 10 years, so I might feel differently about it, but it wasn't really one of my go-tos, and I can't even think of another example of a comedy horror that I didn't like because that's how few I've seen, and the ones that I have seen I have enjoyed. But after Shaun of the Dead, I was a complete convert and found a whole new appreciation for the genre, and I'm now more open to all kinds of comedy horror. And I started to notice that even films that weren't labeled as comedy horror were still self-aware and tend to make us laugh even when we're supposed to be scared. So all wrapped up in this 88-minute film, we've got sci-fi, horror, comedy, romance, and zombies. So there's a lot going on, but it's all balanced so perfectly. It's a mix of 16 Candles and The Return of the Living Dead. It's hard not to watch this film with a big old grin on your face the entire time, while also getting some really good gory moments. Just like Slither and Cabin in the Woods, this is another love letter to all horror films before it. One example of this are the last names of the main characters, who are named after well-known directors of horror and sci-fi. There's David Cronenberg, John Carpenter and Tobe Hooper, James Cameron, George Romero, Sam Raimi, Steve Miner, and John Landis. Also on the television in the house mother's home, she is watching Plan 9 from Outer Space. And Slither really does take after this film, whether intentional or not. James Gunn, the director of Slither, said he got his inspiration from Cronenberg's The Brood and Shivers, as well as the manga Uzumaki from Junji Ito. It's possible that these similarities are coincidences, just like with The Blair Witch and Hannibal Holocaust. But the discoveries of the aliens in the woods are pretty similar, and the aftermath of what happens to both of the men are pretty similar as well. Director of Night of the Creeps Fred Dekker unfortunately was ahead of his time. Although today the film has a passionate cult following, it was a flop at the box office. This also goes for Slither. This meshing of genres and styles was new to audiences and movie executives. They didn't know what to do with it or even how to feel about it. Fred Dekker also wrote and directed Monster Squad, which was also a flop at the box office. It also later received a passionate cult following. After he directed RoboCop 3, he stopped getting calls to direct films. However, Fred also does theorize that it's possible that maybe his attitude as a newbie, not knowing the politics of movie making, could have had an effect on how his film was promoted. Producer Charles Gordon even recalls that the New York Times, who had raved about the film, said that the film came into town virtually unannounced, which could only mean that the studios didn't go hard on marketing the film. David Miller was the special makeup effects supervisor, and he had previously worked on A Nightmare on Elm Street and a bunch of other films before that. A few people that he brought on board with him were Howard Berger, who had previously worked on Day of the Dead, Kyle Sweet, who had done makeup on Terminator and Teen Wolf, and Earl Ellis, who had also worked on A Nightmare on Elm Street. The effects crew was excited to work with Fred because he was giving them full creative freedom. Also, because they were on such a tight schedule, they ended up being the frat boys who turned into zombies when the bus crashes. And we also see them get their heads blown off with the flamethrower. When Fred was describing to Howard what he wanted for these aliens, he told him he wanted them to have baby bodies with some big old heads and big frowns. So Howard came up with some sketches, and they ended up with these foam suits fitted over little people. When Fred first screened the film, he didn't expect for people to laugh at the aliens, but he wasn't mad at it because he felt like it gave them permission to go ahead and laugh at other parts of the film where they were supposed to laugh. And as for the creeps, just like in Slither, they made hundreds of them, and they had different kinds for their different purposes. Some of them had a slot car underneath them, that way they could go across hard surfaces. Others had a string attached to them and would get pulled through, like, say, the grass. And then there were the creeps that would explode out of the heads, and those were just placed in a plunger-like rig, and when the heads opened up, they would be pushed out. Fred only took 2 weeks to write this script, and he says, as hard as it may be to believe, the first thing that came to his mind was a grumpy man saying, "Thrill me."
Thrill me.
A line that is said 5 times throughout the film that a lot of superfans go crazy over. From there is where he built the rest of the story. As a horror fan, he had all of these ideas in his head already. It was just a matter of sitting down and writing it down all on paper and making it a cohesive story. One thing I do appreciate about the writing is that the main characters are college kids and not high school kids. Not that much of a difference, but better. We don't really get any sex scenes, but we we do see Cindy's Chi-Chis. I just get tired of men writing these stories with high school kids as the main characters having graphic sex. I'm not too keen on the idea of watching kids have sex, even if they are 20-something in real life. I also thought that the sandwich cop was a fun running gag. Before getting to the final cut of the film, Fred screened a preview of the film and it didn't go over as well as he thought it would. So to beef up the ending, he was given a little bit more money to add some more shots. He even added the entire garden shed sequence. The music was composed by Barry Dvorak, the writer of the Young and the Restless theme song, Nadia's theme, formerly Cotton's Dream. Initially, Fred told Barry that he wanted orchestral music, but Barry thought that it would be better if he used electronics and synthesizers, and I think that was a good call. Again, Fred didn't give him too many guidelines other than the fact that this was a serious film despite it being a comedy. So he was also given full creative freedom. Fred didn't even hear the music until he saw it all on the big screen. The music mixed with this amazing cinematography really give you those nostalgic 80s vibes. And yes, this is from the 80s, but the vibes are strong. And I could tell that some of the shots were done in reverse, which was a really smart idea in order to get the illusion of something jumping out, or like when Pam was coming out of the water dry. As far as dislikes go, it kind of did bother me that JC was the only one who was infected who could still talk and think normally. How convenient, right? Also, when the house mother is getting attacked by a zombie, she doesn't move an inch. But one could argue that she's old as hell, she could have been half asleep, and it's just funnier that way, and that's fair. I just couldn't help but yell at the screen and tell her to move. Some of the shots were just a bit too quick. If you looked away or even just blinked, you might have missed it. And I wondered if it was because he was trying to cover up some defects on some of the special effects makeup, but he doesn't do this every time, and every time the special effects are on camera, they look really good. The bus driver shot was an example of this. It was a weird one, and it was just so quick. It makes me wonder if maybe when they did it initially, the actor wasn't as excited and this was his way of fixing it, because when you see him right before the crash, his expression's a little bit dull. He just looks like he's driving Miss Daisy. Or did Fred really just want to do this eye-popping gag? Night of the Creeps gets 4.5 rainbow skulls, and this is a wonderful film for both new horror movie fans and die-hard horror movie fans. This is a great one to put on your watch list for a group movie night for Halloween or any day. Right now you can find this one on Amazon where you can do watch parties. Thank you again, Insane One, for your submission. Thank you again for joining me today, fellow Stardust. I appreciate you being here with me. This month there is a lot on my plate, and one of those things is moving, so True Crime and Nails will be put on hold just for a couple of weeks. But I will still be putting out my horror film reviews and hopefully still putting out more music videos. So if you haven't already, go ahead and hop on the Rainbow Fright Freight Train and hit that subscribe button along with the notification bell. That way you'll get notified every time I upload a new video. I hope I see you next time. Peace.